Hey, it's Greg Rand from OwnAmerica.com, and I had an opportunity yesterday to appear on the Fox Business Network where they were talking about the Debt Commission's recommendation to change the tax code and eliminate, among other things, the mortgage tax deduction. They asked me to respond to that, and I wanted to put a piece on the blog here to explain in more detail what I really thought about this. The link here will bring you to the actual report by the Debt Commission, and on page 25 is where they begin to go into detail on the tax reform. And what's important to note is that they're talking about changing the tax code in many, many ways, including reducing the tax rates, which sounds good, and eliminating a bunch of deductions, including the mortgage tax deduction. But they're all those surgical changes to the tax code are going to result in an increase in tax revenue based upon today's numbers. What does that mean? That means that it is a tax increase, but it's a tax increase that is hidden within a hornet's nest of surgical changes that you have to look at the bottom line to realize they are recommending raising taxes, and they're recommending cutting costs. So I have 3 points I want to make on this. One, the mortgage interest tax deduction was put into place in the 19-teens. So we have a century of experience of recommending and encouraging home ownership in this way that worked beautifully, smashingly well for tens of millions of American families who bought homes, lived in them for a long time, paid them off, built a nest egg, created financial security. And then because of the experience of the last 5 years, because of the bad decisions that were made the 5 years prior, we're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater and begin to discourage home ownership. Not a great idea. And, in the context of this overall reform, it gets castigated as a special interest motivation that I'm a real estate guy, so I'm saying don't take away my tax deduction. My point is, stop trying to be so surgical about this. At the end of the day, if they just simply cut spending, if they proved they can get their arms around this beast, you would see an economic boom begin to percolate right away. You think about what the Clinton-Gingrich partnership was back in the last decade, when all they did was balance the budget. They didn't increase taxes to increase revenues. They balanced the budget, unleashed economic growth, and that increased revenues. And what bothers me is that the people who are promoting these kinds of what I consider to be egg-headed solutions, they don't believe that by unleashing economic growth you see increases in revenues, but furthermore, they won't sign on to any solution that will allow the rich to get richer. So they're trying to create economic growth, which by definition is going to make the rich richer, but their plans cannot abide by anybody who's rich getting any richer. And so any solutions that have that outcome, they will stand against those solutions. And so they always disqualify the things that are going to work because they can't allow that to be the outcome. So in conclusion, I believe that the election in November was a tipping point because the outcome, it was not about Republicans versus liberals, and it wasn't about the Tea Party to me. It was about some illustration or demonstration by the American people that we actually run the show. We yanked the leash on the people in power in a way that left scars on them. And that alone has caused the stock market to move forward. That alone is setting us up for great retail sales in the holiday season. That alone is starting to create optimism. So they don't need to go and find some genius way of surgically changing the tax code. You know what? You want to do that? Take the next 2 years to do that. First, cut the spending. Okay? It's kind of like the immigration debate. You want to talk about trying to find a way to normalize 12 million people in the country? Let's talk about it. Let's figure it out. But put the fence up on the border first. Because those of us out here in the real world, we don't believe that you're actually going to cut the spending. We believe that you'll raise the taxes. That we know you'll do if you say you're going to. But we've seen too many examples of when you promise to do the hard stuff and then you don't actually get around to doing the hard stuff. So my vote is for doing the hard stuff first, and once you prove that to us, if you want to monkey around with the tax reform, you can, but don't raise taxes on anybody or anything, because you'll see that just by virtue of showing that you have control over spending, you're going to unleash the beast of the American economy.